On the other hand, there is a pushback. On June 15th, there will be the meeting of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. And this, of course, is Russia, China, and the 5 Central Asian former Soviet republics there, ex-Soviet space, and it's also got Iran and India as observers. So if we can say behind Pakistan there now stands China. We've also had signals from Russia. Medvedev, who is the soft line, he's the weak side of the Russian establishment. In his press conference last week, Medvedev's line was, we face a new Cold War with the United States because of Obama's insistence on building the anti-ballistic missile systems in Romania, Poland, and elsewhere in Eastern Europe. It's a new Cold War.
And notice Obama said a year ago they weren't going to build the missiles. It's all, don't run where you're friends, and you lower your guard and they stab you.
He lies. I guess that guy was right, the one who shouted it out. So we also have President Hu of China in meeting with some journalists, looking forward to this meeting of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization at the middle of next month. He said, our relations, Chinese relations with Russia, are at an all-time high. They have never been better. So behind Pakistan stands China, behind China stands Russia. That's pretty much the breakdown. But also don't forget this idea of the Pakistan-Saudi alliance that is, I think, very real. It's the cause, it's the immediate reason why this is happening right now in this time frame. And Bandar's Saudi diplomacy with Putin. So it's beginning to coalesce into a coherent bloc of opposition. I would appeal once again to India. India is very, very ill-advised to stay in this U.S.-India nuclear deal. It simply makes India into cannon fodder. It makes India into the expendable continental dagger of the U.S. and the British, a large land power to be used against China, Russia.
And the globalists wreck them even more economically in the process, and then they go into more debt. And the parasitic bankers get America more into debt and bankrupt us more, but we get patriotic in this new giant war the Rand Corporation said they needed 3 years ago in that very area to, quote, get their new world order. Now we're not worried about the global bankers looting us because we're all patriotic because World War III has started. Now, how do you see this program going? What's the globalists' next move then as they gallop forward into this conflagration?
Well, they're very ill-advised to do so. Right? One of the ways you can tell they're really crazy is they want to attack Pakistan even when their supply line goes through Pakistan. The whole invading force inside Afghanistan depends on this port of Karachi to Khyber Pass 1,000-mile land corridor, which goes right through the middle of Pakistan. And the Pakistani parliament unanimously voted, stop your predator drone attacks, or we are going to cut that supply line for you. Now, in terms of what's going to happen, again, the scenario, terror events that are directed against U.S. forces or even against the Pakistanis themselves would be used as a pretext for Obama to come out and say, with his unbelievable hypocrisy and condescension, he could say, we see that these Pakistanis are incapable of maintaining the security of their nuclear forces, therefore we're going to help them. We're going to give them assistance. And I've ordered the Joint Special Operations Command, and the specific group is called Task Force Orange. Task Force Orange would be that group that did that Bin Laden caper, whatever that.
And so the invasion and occupation of the Pakistani bases will be, don't run, we're your friends.
We're your friends.
And if anybody says don't occupy us, how dare the Pakistanis not let us occupy them? Those savages, oh.
But of course, most people in the world don't believe this anymore. It would be good if the SCO or people like this came out and denounced this more obviously. But I'm afraid this is where we're going. So the main thing is, if these things happen, don't believe them and inoculate your friends, neighbors, your readers, your listeners.
I'm just a guy that lives in Austin, Texas. I got 3 wonderful children. I love America. Our country's been an engine of good, really, until the 1960s, and I know Tarpley's done an analysis and agrees with that. And we've gone from being this engine of good to really being the heart of this corrupt world government involved in just such duplicitous evil. And it's all being done in our name. And now our ally, Pakistan, their own governments had to come out and say, Al-Qaeda's run by you, you're staging it all. Stop it. Don't attack us. And China is standing by to have nuclear war with you if you try. And we've got nukes. I mean, this is a big deal, Webster, to have the Chinese government come out and say an attack on Pakistan's an attack on us. And a lot of good old boys are kind of like, well, let's get in a war. It makes me feel manly. Ladies and gentlemen, the Chinese have 1,400,000,000 people. They got thousands of nukes. The traders that run our country have handed over our infrastructure to them. Russia's not playing games. And look, Russia is not on our border trying to get Mexico to attack us. I mean, the point is, this isn't our government that's doing this. This is this corporate elite, and it's coming to a head. I mean, Webster, there's no doubt they just tried to kill Ahmadinejad, blowing up this power plant while he was at it, this gas plant. They're now saying ground forces for Libya, attack helicopters. I mean, can't folks see this is a giant Brzezinskian global destabilization program being launched?
Well, I have the idea that if you go back to the beginning, the time right before World War I, you see something similar. Remember, the Sarajevo assassinations were at the end of June of 1914. The war didn't really get going until the first week of August. So you got this whole month of July 1914. And if you look at the literary materials that have come down to us from that time, you'll see that European public opinion was in a dream. It was in a trance. It was in an elegiac, idyllic mood. They probably sensed subconsciously that something horrendous was about to happen, but this had not yet become conscious for a lot of people. You look at the situation right now, we're closer to a general war than we've been, I guess, since about 2007, since the high point of Bush, Cheney, and the rogue B-52 and the Kennebunkport warning at that time. But right now we've got, the difference is we don't have a peace movement. We don't have any opposition. The people who used to oppose war, they're busy denouncing Gaddafi and supporting the attack on Libya, or they're out there saying Obama is a better warmonger than Bush and Cheney. He's more effective. He brings home he gets his man. So it's a terrible situation. So those of us who can understand this, and your listeners in particular, have to do everything possible to wake up public opinion in the United States. We are drifting towards some kind of general war, some kind of horrendous incident, and we've got this lunatic ruling class. We've got a bunch of incompetent, bungling, utopian people. They're perfectly incompetent. They're not in a position to run the affairs of this country, and unfortunately there's no visible, organized alternative. But at least the idea that the situation in the world strategic sense is more serious, more threatening than it has been in the past 3 or 4 years. This idea we have to get across. And above all, don't believe false flag stories when it's pinned on Pakistan or so-called Al-Qaeda, but with the idea that that's really Pakistan.
Yeah, why on earth would Pakistan or anybody else carry out a 9/11 knowing that they would then be invaded and killed and overthrown? It's like, why would somebody jump in front of a truck? It doesn't make sense.
Right.
Look at how they invaded Iraq, saying they were involved in 9/11. Webster, let's shift gears and get into Dominique Strauss-Kahn. There's a reason old-timers built storm cellars in the Midwest and East and many other areas, tornadoes. 500 deaths this year so far, 116 dead in Joplin, deadliest in half a century. Obama says he'll get around to visiting on Sunday. And the storm track, it's up at drudgereport.com. We'll also get a link to storm track up on Infowars.com. Live alert where it's moving towards a Minneapolis liquor store got hit and then got looted. Just a lot of bizarre news coming out on that front. That preacher that said the world would end last Saturday, he didn't mean May 21st. He meant October 21st. This guy's got to be getting paid for this stuff. I mean, this is just ridiculous. Webster, finishing up, what do you think of the Dominique Strauss-Kahn? I mean, I'm no fan of the globalists. I'm no fan of this guy, but more and more they released Sarkozy's top spin doctor and campaign people released on Twitter before he was even arrested. The police had said they had the DNA evidence, or that had been leaked. Now it's admitted they don't have DNA evidence. Kahn, I know, had said the end of the dollar was near. I mean, what's going on here from your intel?
It is the CIA attack on the euro, and we need to remember that all last year, all of 2010 was consumed with the U.S., the CIA, Goldman Sachs, this idea dinner at Moness, Crespi, and Hart that was reported in the Wall Street Journal. The attack on the euro. You can't make the dollar look good, but what you can do is make the euro look very, very bad. You can attack Greece. You can attack Portugal, Ireland, Spain, other countries. You can use credit default swaps for economic warfare. Try to export the depression from the U.S. to Europe. So Strauss-Kahn, now he's the head of the IMF. He wants to be president of France. So his task was to keep the euro together until he could become president of France. Minimally that. That would mean something that the U.S. Wall Street, and of course Wall Street runs the CIA, couldn't accept. So they had to launch some kind of an attack. What it shows, by the way, is the desperation of imperialism. They're knocking over assets that they've used for 10, 20, 30 years, right? They put 15 years of work into building the bin Laden myth. Now they announce he's dead. They have Mubarak in power for 30 years. Then they decide to overthrow him. The power-sharing deal on the International Monetary Fund is really about 60 years old, 60 to 65 years old. It's that traditionally the head of the World Bank is from the U.S. and the head of the IMF is from Europe. And Europe has meant about half of the time, I think we've had 4 French bosses of the IMF, 1 German, so that's about almost half of the 12 IMF heads. You've also had people from countries like the Dutch or Sweden or other places, but generally it tended to gravitate toward France, Germany, the 2 leading countries on the continent. So that's a power-sharing agreement. That basically says we're going to merge the old European imperialisms with this Anglo-American.
But as you said several years ago, this meltdown of the global financial system instituted by the mega banks, they intend to come out on the end completely dominant. And so that this upheaval would be purposefully accelerated during this period, and we're entering this incredible period of dangerous change.
But it also shows it's really not globalism. It's really Anglo-American, U.S., British imperialism. There's no place at the table for anybody who's going to represent a French interest or a German interest or a European interest. First it was going to be stop with the Europeans, now get a third world puppet. Get somebody from the developing sector. Get some British agent from someplace in Africa or something like this. Now it seems to be this woman Lagarde, and Lagarde is the most Britishized, Americanized in the whole French government. If Strauss-Kahn was lonely, he could have called up the Elliot Spitzer dating service. It absolutely makes no sense.
Webster, great job. Tarpley.net. Your story's up at Infowars.com. Thank you for tracking Thank you for tracking the build-up to World War III. Thank you, Webster. We'll be right back with our next guest, Dr. Jerome Corsi, on the latest issue with the birth certificate. Visit Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com. When you're on the site, you can also tune in 24 hours a day to my daily radio broadcast. There's also a free iPhone app to listen to the syndicated radio show when and where you want.